And hello everybody, welcome to another Pokéstoric video. And yes, I am perfectly aware how late this video is.
You're telling me. You're a freaking year late. And most of it watching my life.
Obviously, this video will surround dragons, but it's not too restrictive. I'll keep it very simple. So I gave the artists these rules. If the subject you have chosen is a dinosaur, reptile, or relates to dragons, the Pokemon can be any type you choose. If the subject isn't one of the above, then the Pokemon must either be a dragon type or has draconic elements. I think you might know what most artists went for, including me. Basically, I didn't want to be too restrictive for the artists, but I still wanted to make sure all the subjects in this video are in theme with, well, dragons, and, well, everything draconic. So what do you think of this idea? If you're interested in seeing more, which I'd love to do, please let me know down in the description below. Now, for those who don't know how these sort of videos go, here is a little clip to tell you how this will roll. Hello, it's me, and I'll be covering what this video will be about. This video has 5 main segments. Each segment is about one subject, whether it's an extinct animal, anime character, mythical monster, or whatever. For each of those segments, you have an artist, me included, who will make Pokemon based on those subjects. This may include evolutions, megaforms, or various other forms. You'll just have to wait and see. Before I show the Pocket Monsters, I do like to educate you on the subject in hand. For example, educating about the Mosasaurus and other information surrounding it. For those Pokemon fans who like details like stats and abilities, I also cover those. Although I'll save moves and comparative details for the final evolutions or biggest form unless multiple forms have something unique to offer. So that's enough from this me, thank you so much for listening, and now back to the current me or whoever they are. Yes! We get to start in the Protozoic, represented in this video by Limnoscelis. The fossil of Limnoscelis were first collected by a fossil hunter, David Baldwin, between 1877 to 1880 from the El Combre Canyon beds of the Cutler Formation, New Mexico. He collected a specimen for Othniel Charles Marsh during the Bone Wars. Get that smirk off your face! It was then deposited to the Peabody Museum at Yale College for several decades. It was then described in 1911 by paleontologist Samuel Wendell Williston, who discovered 3 specimens in the museum's collections, one being a relatively complete skeleton, which included a skull, the other 2 having less complete postcranial skeletons. Williston named it in reference to the potential marsh-like environment it inhabited. In 1912, he even described the discovery of a 4th specimen, which he collected himself at the same place the other fossils have been excavated. Between 1966 and 1973, more specimens have been discovered by Peter P. Vore from the Sangre de Cristo Formation in Colorado, which would be attributed to a different species in the genus L. dianthus. Limnoscelis was a didectomorph, a group of terrestrial animals that resembled a mixture of an amphibian and a primitive reptile. This mainly boiled down to whether it was fully terrestrial or not, looking at how developed the limbs and skull were. Some believe the animal was semi-aquatic when looking at the short limbs and flat tail, although some others opposed to this idea. If it was semi-aquatic, it would have lived in riverine forests or marshlands. However, unlike other didectomorphs, Limnoscelis was a carnivore when looking at its teeth. With the additional information of the feet and ankle bones being fused, heavily reducing its agility, it would have been more suited to large, slow-moving prey, possibly behaving in a similar manner to a crocodilian. Not a lot of clear information on this animal, especially with which traits are amphibian and reptilian. That could be my lazy brain not noticing. Admittedly, that is the only interesting thing going for it. Otherwise, it isn't really that special compared to many other animals. Still, it had its niche and stuck to it for 10 million years, which is somewhat impressive. Anyway, let's see what this marsh-footed reptile would look like as a Pokemon. The moss on its back, as well as the spines, harbour protection, providing cushioning and impalement to any attacker. The moss growing around its feet makes its footsteps silent, perfect for sneaking and ambushing their prey. Our first Pokemon is Limmarsh. This design takes the term marsh-footed to the extreme, with other swampy elements incorporated into its design. The large mossy socks around this moist Pokemon's feet somewhat remind me of bear paws, as they are quite large compared to the rest of his body. The elements of white remind me a bit of a skeleton, which makes me think of SCP-682, aka the unkillable reptile. the sticky substance I imagine could work like sticky poison, especially how dark it is. You know, like you just, if you get it stuck on you, then you can't really get it off without some sort of chemical, and it'll just burn your skin and react with it. So, want to cut someone's hand off chemically, you can sort of just wrap like a bracelet around their wrist, and then just like, it'll just slowly dissolve its way through. It's a little bit dark, isn't it? For stats, Limmarsh is slow, but makes up for it with extra bulk and good attack, although its physical defense is somewhat average. For abilities, we have Soundproof, helping it against moves like the super effective Bug Buzz, Disarming Voice, Clanging Scales, and other powerful moves like Boom Burst and Uproar. It could also be good against opposing status moves like the Doom-bringing Perish Song, the debuffing Parting Shot, and the confusion-inducing Supersonic. Of course, there's the other ability Poison Point, which offers a less passive defensive edge against opponents who take advantage of Limmarsh's attack of physical bulk, although it won't affect steel or poison types, just keep that in mind. For moves, we have an interesting diversity. To take advantage of Limmarsh's slow speed, Payback would enable Limmarsh to deal double the damage most of the time, unless it's against the slowest Regigigas or the Slacking. And no, I did not repeat myself, there is a Pokemon that's called Slacking. For Stab, you have numerous Dragon moves, although I could only think of Giga Drain for an offensive grass type move. As well as Payback, you have plenty of options for offense, although I suggest having a poison type move to counter the grass types, or the threatening fairy types. For passive approach, you have Ingrain for recovery at the cost of Limmarsh being stuck in the field. Spore is great as it's a guaranteed hit to make the target sleep, although this won't affect grass types. Toxic Spikes are brutal against most grounded Pokemon, especially if Limmarsh can set up 2 layers of the Toxic Trap. The worst Pokemon Limmarsh would face against are Ice types, especially physical attackers like Weavile and Momostow, mainly due to Limmarsh being quite weak to those types and obviously its frail physical defense. The only other types are Fairy, Dragon, Bug, and Flying types, so a Togekiss would be a massive threat. For Terra types, I highly suggest Water, thanks to resisting Ice while also boosting Aqua Tail and Hydro Pump. An alternative I also recommend is Poison, thanks to its resistance against Fairy, being immune to Poison status and boosting the power of Poison Fang, Sludge Bomb, and Poison Jab. Defensively, Fire and Steel also work against Ice types, but does also cover Fairy. Offensively, Dark, Dragon, and Grass will boost the power of the moves on screen. Overall, Limmarsh is actually quite solid, but would face many dangerous opponents who have a type advantage over it, especially with its low speed. However, Limmarsh would serve well as a bulky support, thanks to its moveset and pretty good bulk. I'd like to thank Chenelle Russell, I hope I pronounced that right, for doing this design, and also doing the shiny as well. I'm totally not going to look it up because I've forgotten what it looks like. It's got more of an olive oil sort of colour with somewhat of a dry mud with the moss. I think it's a little bit more saturated as well in the main body. Oh, it's definitely a lot. I love shinies that actually make a contrast because you could actually bloom and notice them. Yes, thank you so much for taking this on. I hope you had fun doing this design, and I will be apologising to every artist for how late I am with this. I am very sorry. If you want to see more of this artist's work, then please check out their socials. You'll see them down below. You can also look them up, which you can see on screen. Please, I do want to try and give these artists the attention they deserve. Now onto the wait. We're still in the Prehistoric? Whee! We usually don't stay in here long. Oh. Anyway, we go from the amphibious dragon to the closest we ever had to a dragon of Western mythology, the... Oh no. Coelurosauravus. Okay, I actually did practice this before actually starting this bit. Coelurosauravus specimens were collected somewhere between 1907 to 1908 by J.M. Colknap. Or was it Colknap? Sorry. In the Sakarema Formation in Madagascar. Did I do like a little growl there? Sorry. It was then named in 1926 by Jean Bivetor, clearly in reference to it being an earlier example of avian vertebrates before pterosaurs and birds. Only 2 specimens of Coelurosauravus are known and are under the species name C. elevensis. Coelurosauravus is a member of the Weigelitosauridae family, which, like them, possess long, rod-like ossifications, the growth of the bone, projecting outwards from the body. These bony rods were not extensions of the ribs, but actually bones that derived from the skin, which is a unique feature of Weigelitosaurids. These structures formed folding the wings that would have been used for gliding, like the modern Draco lizards. Yes, I actually didn't know there's such creatures called Draco. I wonder if the art is actually looking into them because these look really cool. Originally, another Welgiltisaur from Europe, Welgiltiosaurus Yekele, was under the same genus as Coelurosauravus, but is now in its own genus. Before we talk about the wings and gliding, let's look at the skull. The cranial ornamentation, aka the protrusion of the skull, have small tubercles and spikes, including a horned frill. Although this is a bit of a stretch, this may suggest that the reptile may have had a frill similar to the more iconic ceratopsians, you know, like Triceratops and that, which would have emerged until the Cretaceous 190 million years later. I think I got it right. Is that right? Is that right? Did I get the math right?
According to Wikipedia, I know, ceratopsians emerged around 161 million years ago. So minus 100 million years. You're on point.
With its teeth, it had 29 pairs of simple conical teeth, all packed in a dense row. These would have served to catch agile flying insects. When Coelurosauravus glided, it would have had a low wing configuration, having its wings angled upwards to increase its stability. In 2011, a study found that comparing Coelurosauravus and other extinct gliding reptiles with the extant Draco species, it was found that the extinct reptiles were less efficient gliders due to their body size with a wing load of 4.5 times higher than the modern Draco, meaning the reptiles like Coelurosauravus had a rapid drop height per glide. As well as gliding, Coelurosauravus' wings may have also been used for display, mating courtships, and or dominance against rivals. Furthermore, the display could have served to startle predators when quickly opened, giving the reptile time to escape. Coelurosauravus may have lived in a wetland environment, where it was temperate, warm, and humid, with seasonal rainfall and monsoons. The area would have been covered in lush vegetation, including the trees the reptile would have used to jump off and glide. Despite how iconic it is, including being in the series Primeval, Coelurosauravus is the smallest of Welgiltisaurs, with a mature skull of 3.5 centimeters. The reason why Coelurosauravus went extinct before the Triassic period is due to the climatic changes that occurred when supercontinent Pangaea was forming. After the formation, Pangaea summoned climatic and environmental extremes, such as the south being bitterly cold and desolate, being mostly covered in ice sheets. Coelurosauravus couldn't adapt to these extreme changes, letting it drop into obscurity. Yes, this is the closest animal we ever got to a real dragon, only to be what I presume outcompeted by a more successful winged group of reptiles, the pterosaurs. I wonder, if this animal did survive, would it have actually had something similar to real dragons? Well, that's what we're here to see in form of a pocket monster. So let's see what this king of vertebrate flight would look like as a Pokemon. It glides through the night sky, reflecting light off its wings that glisten beautifully in a full moon. Its crest wields great power. Legends are told that if you get a hold of its crescent, you'll be able to see a possible bright future. However, if you force the crescent off its head, you'll get a tragic future. Our first light-type Pokemon in the series is... okay, how do I pronounce this? Empryeanite? Anyway, I think it's interesting that they decided to go for butterfly-like wings in its design, and having a bright crest. Not really a ton else to say except that it's a colourful Pokemon with a heavy influence of lunar light. For stats, it's specially orientated with special and HP bulk, although its best stat would be in speed. For its ability, we have the new Reflective Ray, which is specific for a certain move this Pokemon can learn. For moves, we have mostly special moves and many passive moves. For Moondust is actually a powerful move, forcing Dark Dragon and Fighting type Pokemon out of the field and staying out unless the field effect wears off. Yes, this is an attacking move, but also a field effect, like Spikes or Stealth Rock. We also have many new Light type moves. Oh, we just have two. Oh. Blinding Flash is like Flash, except it doesn't affect light types and have a wider effect in double or triple battles. Also, it lowers the Pokemon's special defense instead of accuracy, the one that's been hit by the way. Moonlit Beam is basically like Psychic, but for light types. A unique element of light types is that they are weak and super effective against dark types. You'll find more in the video that I'll be putting in the eye icon and in the description below, but I'll cover some elements now. Like Limmarsh, this Pokemon is vulnerable against ice types. While light types are not weak to ice moves, fly types are. Furthermore, light type moves don't affect ice types. This further makes it like Limmarsh with its lack of physical defense. For Terra types, and I did need to look at the type sheet I made for this since the light type isn't canon to the Pokemon games, I certainly suggest Fairy thanks to its resistance against dark attacks while also boosting the power of offensive Fairy attacks. Defensively, Grass and Dragon resists both Grass and Water type attacks. Dragon also boosts the power of Dragon Pulse. Offensively, Bug, Flying, and Light would boost the power of the moves this Pokemon can learn. Overall, Empryeanite is fairly fast, but it lacks any significant offensive or defensive presence. It would work best as support thanks to its moves, but its ability isn't very versatile. Not a complaint, but more of a suggestion, but I would love to see what this Pokemon could evolve into, as I say, it does hold a lot of potential, especially with its ability and its moveset, and also its stat distribution. I'd like to thank Jadenjjcoolz? I don't actually know what, I think I'm Jaden. I'll just say Jaden, hope it's alright. Yeah, thank you for doing this design and choosing a really cool animal for this episode. It's really, I just really think it's a cool animal. And I really do appreciate that you had some creative ideas for this design. As I said before, I think I don't often try and make suggestions, so please just take it as a suggestion, not as a criticism or a complaint or anything. But there's a lot of potential health for this Pokemon. I would love to see what it could be. Also, in case people think I'm a little bit too harsh with its competitive potential, I'm not that great at understanding competitive stuff. I can guess. I know a little bit, but I'm not a pure expert on it. So if you want to disprove me, go ahead. I'm not going to argue. But yes, I do not want to undermine their work. So, of course, please, if you love what they do, please check out their socials, which are, you know where they are. The description below, or on screen. Thank you. Okay, now we are in the Mesozoic. I'll admit, I am satisfied as I feel that Protozoic deserves a little bit more attention, especially with how unique a lot of the animals were. And that's what I love about this series, you just get to educate about all these amazing creatures. Anyhow, we go from a small ornamented dragon to a titanic ornamented dragon. We are covering Olorotitan. Fossils of Olorotitan were first discovered in the Olorotitan formation in Kundur in the Amur region of Russia between 1999 and 2001. In 2003, Pascal Godefroy, okay, that sounds familiar.
He helped verify Hall's Scaraptor, mentioned in Pokésaur 4.
Oh, sorry. Pascal Godefroy and colleagues described and named the Hadrosaur as a new species, the genus name being Olorotitan, meaning Titanic Swan, as its neck was longer than other hadrosaurs, and the species name coming from the Lamthra country where the fossil was found. Also at the site, fragmentary dinosaur, turtle, and crocodilian remains were also discovered. The fossil of Olorotitan is the most complete Lambeosaurine skeleton discovered anywhere outside of Western North America. Only the hands and feet are missing, likely due to scavengers consuming them before the individual was buried. The nasal passages of the skull are either fragmented or crushed, so it's unknown if the nasal passage connected to the crest the same way hadrosaurs like Parasaurolophus did. Oh, in case you didn't know, Lambeosaurs were basically a group of crested hadrosaurs named after the hadrosaur Lambeosaurus. Olorotitan is characterized by the hatchet-like hollow crest, likely used for visual display and vocal communication. They would have also been used to indicate the dinosaur's vitality, and as a resonating chamber to affect the sound of its calls such as low but far-reaching sounds. Originally, the crest was thought to be a horn like a narwhal. Its nameworthy neck had 18 vertebrae, while other hadrosaurs had around 15. This would give it an advantage when grazing on high vegetation. Olorotitan was able to chew plant material using its continually replaced teeth, like a vegetarian shark, but not in the exact same way, I presume. Like many other hadrosaurs, Olorotitan could have walked either bipedally or quadrupedally, the former likely to help it outrun predators. The fossil specimen of Olorotitan had articulations from where the tail joins the body, suggesting that it could have had a rigid tail. However, this could be due to the individual having some kind of infection, although this is yet to be proven. Another theory, like us humans, dinosaurs could have varied in their growth patterns, some maturing sooner or later than others, so determining the size to age may prove to be an ineffective method. Lambeosaurines such as Olorotitan, Carnosaurus, and Amorosaurus were not found in Cretaceous rocks of North America, suggesting that Lambeosaurines were more diverse and common at the end of the Mesozoic due to either climatic or ecological differences. Olorotitan lived alongside other Asian Lambeosaurines, like the ones previously mentioned. Turtles, crocodilians, theropods like Tarbosaurus, and Nodosaurs were also found in the area. The climate Olorotitan lived in would have been warm and swampy, possibly living like a duck. Olorotitan was among the last non-avian dinosaurs to have gone extinct during the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event, either due to a massive tsunami from the Pacific or starving out when most plants wouldn't grow, leaving the true Titanic Swan underground. It's kind of a weird habit with me. I like to go sad when talking about the extinctions. I feel it should be tackled that way. Anyhow, Olorotitan is my entry for this video and was chosen by my patrons, who I am grateful for. I did not expect a Hadrosaur for Smaugust video, but this definitely gave me some creative ideas. So, let's see what this Titanic hatchet-crested swan would look like as a Pokemon. Despite their duck-like appearance and behaviour, they are not birds, but a group of ancient reptiles. Orteals spend most of their time warding in the water. However, they cannot float upon deep water as their bodies are not adapted for swimming. They travel across bodies of water by having Olortundrys carry them on their backs. This little cutie is Orteal. This design isn't too complex, but I did take elements from the Beetle and one of Olorotitan's skins from Jurassic World Evolution 2. I wanted to make this like a pond duck, but still a dinosaur in appearance. So like a dinosaur behaving like a duck. The crest itself, I want to make it bright and contrasting to its body. For stats, there's nothing amazing really, with the most emphasis on its special stats really. For its ability, we have big pecs. And for its hidden ability, we have hydration. Personally, I feel the latter would work better for Orteal's stat distribution, but that's just me. Anyway, let's see what this little guy evolves into. Lamthra are able to run at speeds of 40 miles per hour, even when warding through water. Due to the colour differences in their crests, Lamthra must be able to see in colour, helping them determine males from females. They live in large flocks of around 20 members for protection. Unlike Orteal, Lamthra are more aggressive when faced against predators, using their powerful legs and necks to fight. The more agile Lamthra comes with gender differences, as you can see here. The males have more colour to their crest than the females. For their designs, I wanted to make them like flamingos and to have more feathers on the designs. To be honest, they were just a bridge between Orteal and Lamthra's evolution. Not sure why not they should be scrapped. For stats, Lamthra is faster and its special stats gain a boost too. However, its physical attack is somehow even worse. Despite what its dex entry says, I have no idea what was going on there. For abilities, we now have Quick Feet, which fits with this Pokemon being faster. However, its hidden ability remains the same. Now, let's see what this, I suppose I would call it a wastebasket design would evolve into. Olortundrys are rare to spot due to either their solitary lifestyle or their aggressive behaviour. However, they are very affectionate towards Orteal, whether they're the Pokemon's offspring or not. From observations of tamed Olortundrys, sexual dimorphism does not just affect their appearance but their behaviour. Males are more aggressive and prideful while females are reserved and more intelligent. Every decade, Olortundrys gathered in great numbers to breed, a rare sight for anyone near a large yet desolate lake. This magnificent Pokemon is Olortundrys. Okay, I did write Olorotundrys in the screenplay, but I realised there's one O less when looking at the details. So, Olortundrys, why do I call it Olor? I don't know. Anyway, as you can see here, the gender differences are even greater than before, the males having a longer neck and fiery colour scheme compared to the female being cooler and having a shorter neck. Also, their eyes are different too. This is actually in reference to A Russian Tale of the White Duck, which is basically about a woman who was turned into a duck and gave birth to 2 ducklings and a dragon, the last one eating the other 2. Okay, I might have not been the most accurate with that, but that's what I came across. And I thought, yeah, that's a good idea to look into. The most obvious reference are swans, although I looked into the tundra swan in particular. What I wanted to show is power, beauty, and majesty, since I made this Pokemon to be a pseudo-legendary, although I don't know if I could have added more details in its design, but I wanted to push that with the wings and the crest. For stats, Olortundrys are primarily bulky, although they have some offensive presence thanks to its 117 special attack. It also has decent speed too. Of course, its physical attack is its biggest flaw, but to be fair, who really cares? For abilities, we go from speed to offense. If anyone remembers Pokéstoric 2, I made an ability called Amplify, which I wanted to reuse for this design. Of course, its inability remains unchanged, but it's still good to use. With its tail types, without spoiling much, although there isn't really much to spoil, Dragon or Steel will offer extra power while sacrificing resistance to fire or ice, or Dragon or Fairy respectively. Defensively, Flying offers both resistance against fighting attacks and immunity from ground attacks, which is fitting considering Olortundrys is a dino bird. Okay, you see what is on screen there? Let's see what this majestic swan dinosaur Pokemon would evolve into. Or should I say, change into, when under certain conditions. In its bond state, no matter the gender, Olortundrys become protective if their trainer would come to harm. With their wing blades, not only do they slice through steel beams, but are heated to melt and even evaporate the metal. This does depend on how tempered the Pokemon are. Yes, I want to try and push bond forms forward again. Maybe due to the color customization thing, because that, I will admit, it's kind of a nice selling point. But I think it's fun to play with as well. Anyway, this is the Draconic Swan, Bond Olortundrys. Its design is heavily based on the Russian dragon Smaugust-themed, or Zmay, which is known to have 3 heads or heads in multiples of 3. That are on long serpentine necks and having claws like iron. Oh, and it's also said to have human-like features, which if I show the genders, actually you might already see them, the female represents really well, because, you know, human-like elements. The male, I used the palette of the image of Zmay, well, this image you see here. I'll be honest, I am unsure of the chest fluff and the object around it, as I wasn't sure how to connect the 3 heads to the torso, but that's something for me to look at again at another day. For stats, Bond Olortundrys is able to take a lot of damage while dishing out powerful special attacks. Obviously abilities remain the same, but still really good. For moves, we have a massive variety, although I suggest sound-based moves like Disarming Voice and Hyper Voice if you're going with Amplify. Yeah, I suggest going out with a bulky sweeping set with moves like Roost for recovery and Draco Blast or Steel Beam for great damage, which can be boosted with Calm Mind. With Olortundrys, be careful of fighting and ground types, especially as its physical defense, while it's still quite high, is nothing compared to its special defense. I mean, still, Lucario would have to watch out for a flamethrower. Overall, of course, I believe Olortundrys would be great in the meta, especially the Bond version. However, fast and powerful fighter types can still take it down. So, if you are wondering why Olortitan was used for this video, it's thanks to my patrons. Yes, I am really happy that I did this. It was actually quite a fun one to do, and it was not something I would have expected to do. But that's what I love about this. You can take something like a dinosaur, like a hadrosaur, and you're like, okay, how do we make this cool? How do we make it fit with the video? Who would expect it? A Olortitan with a bloomin' 3-headed dragon swan. Who? Alright. Oh, and also, here are their shinies. I can't actually remember what they look like, but they do look quite cool. Alright, before we go into the next segment, I just want to show what they look like with, with certain color, the bond forms. I want to show you what they look like with the color palette of, you know, my hair and eyes, both male, female, and regular and shiny. All right. Now, okay, while I was writing this video, I think it was actually after, I started writing this afterwards, but Queen Elizabeth II, she really likes swans. If you didn't know, they are, well, I'm not sure they still are, hopefully they are considered a protected species in Britain. And just a little bit of homage, forgive me if I'm not entirely accurate with this, but here are the bond forms for Queen Elizabeth. May she rest in peace, and may she be remembered fondly. Once again, thank you to my patrons for choosing this Pokemon design. If you want to have more influence over Pokemon Creation series, then please check out my Patreon. Link is in the description. Surprisingly, our last dinosaur in this video is a dinosaur that actually has a draconic name, Dracorex. The fossil of Dracorex was found in the Hell Creek Formation in South Dakota by 3 amateur paleontologists, Brian Buckbear and brothers Steve and Pat Salisbury, from Sioux City, Iowa, during a college trip. Steve Salisbury was the first to suggest donating the find, recalling taking his daughter, Alexandra, to the Children's Museum of Indianapolis while he and his family lived at the Indiana University Hospital in Indianapolis in the early 1990s. The other two agreed, and the fossil was donated to the museum in 2004. The fossil is of a nearly complete skull with 4 cervical vertebrae. In 2006, Bob Baker wasn't sure what to name the dinosaur until he was inspired by how dragon-like the skull was. It was then he and Robert Sullivan formally described the dinosaur as Dracorex Hogwartsia, or, as some of you Potterheads might know, the Dragon King of Hogwarts, after J.K. Rowling's book series Harry Potter. However, despite its pop culture reference, some people, including paleontologist Jack Horner, believe the skull of Dracorex is actually a juvenile version of Pachycephalosaurus, along with Stygimoloch, whose skull hasn't completed growing. The skull of Dracorex, unlike what you would expect from a Pachycephalosaur, is that it's flat. You would say this is primitive until you realise that it lived at the end of the Mesozoic. This is evidenced when Sullivan pointed out that the oldest Pachycephalosaurs had domed skulls, and later Pachycephalosaurs had flatter skulls. This suggests that the Pachycephalosaurs we recognise for their domed skulls are actually quite primitive. Well, imagine that, an animal with not just a draconic name, but a reference to a famous franchise that does include dragons. I am a fan of Harry Potter, although I will admit I haven't watched the series for a long time, and I am not a Potterhead. So let's see what this King Dragon of Hogwarts would look like as a Pokemon. Believed to be the king of dragons and a relative of Rampardos, it invented a dance thought to bring out your inner dragon. Well, this is quite an interesting dex entry. I think that might be connected to Dragon Dance. Here is Machmoloch. Like Dracorex, Machmoloch has a flat skull and horns on its head, but the rest brings out the legacy of dragons with the smoky wings, obsidian plating, and even some kind of hot liquid stored in its thighs. I don't know why, that just sounds weird. The wings are the most creative aspect in my opinion, as they make Machmoloch appear something of a western dragon, but is in fact more like a drake. And if you're wondering, drakes don't actually have wings at all. Well, I think it varies, I don't know, it's confusing. Some say it's wings, some say it's actually fire breathing, but I have no idea. For stats, Machmoloch focuses on offense and bulk while still having below average speed. For abilities, we have the Burning Flashfire and the Sharp Obsidian Point, the latter being a new ability. Basically, it works by adding Stealth Rock either while attacking or being attacked, but only if it's a physical move. However, I can imagine abilities like Magic Bounce turning this ability against itself. For Terra types, Steel and Flying work best defensively. Deliberately excluding a specific type, Dragon, Ground, and Rock will boost the Pokemon's offensiveness with the moves that you will see soon. Now, I think you noticed a little bond form there, so let's have a look.
And where's the dex?
Oh, yeah, well, not all bond forms have to have a Pokedex entry. For some reason, actually. It seems discoveries that I've been involved in does have a dex entry, but I'm not sure why.
That's odd.
Yeah, I know, it's quite odd. Could be because it's not been looked into that much. Anyway, Machmoloch is no longer the smoky winged dragon, but in fact now has, well, it's basically a magma dinosaur. This design is much more intimidating, and the pose shows off this Pokemon's beyond boiling rage. For stats, as you would have guessed, Machmoloch now has greater offense and special defense, while it now has a physically defensive weak point. Its abilities remain the same, although Flashfire can now be stacked with Stab. So, for moves, I definitely suggest having a Fire-type move or two if you're going with that setup, and Sunny Day if you want to add that little extra damage. If not, Spikes can help deal even more hazardous damage. Of course, I suggest going special for maximum damage, but physical moves with the Obsidian Point would certainly cause issues for your opponents too. For counters, Machmoloch should be wary of Extra Drill as it's faster and deals a lot of damage with super effective Drill Run or Earthquake, especially against Machmoloch's physical defense. However, Machmoloch can counter with a fire or ground type move against the Steel Mole. Overall, Machmoloch can dish out good damage backed with equally good bulk, although it is frailer physically, which can be taken advantage of by faster, heavy-hitting physical attackers, like Extra Drill as I mentioned before. But I believe it can hold with the competitive scene, thanks to its variety of moves and abilities. I'd like to thank Blac Beetle for doing these designs, and also like bringing back the bond forms again. I mean, I did try that, but I mean, it's nice to have the original artist also make more bond forms. Yeah, it's really fun to just have variety of forms in this series. Oh, also, yeah, as you can see, here's the shinies, but with the bond form, there you go. If I'm not mistaken, you got black hair and green eyes. And there you go. I think it looks really cool. Like, it's a really blooming good excuse to have black Pokemon designs. It looks so alien. It looks so... Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I hope you like it, but I personally love it. If you want to check out this artist, then you can check out their socials down in the comments below, or the description. I mean, I might put them in the comments, but... Our last entry, and conveniently with the Cenozoic, we have our least draconic animal in this video. And my gosh, I'm gonna mispronounce this so many times. Amohuimachairodus, which, yeah, as I said, I may mispronounce many times, but there wasn't any official pronunciations I could find. Amohuimachairodus is known from a large skull of a large male, whose skull was 36 centimeters or 14 inches long, which came from China. While the skull has been deformed into an asymmetrical shape, it is still an excellent condition to study, especially the cranial morphology of the genus and its various species. The skull is very large for a feline, even larger than modern lions. Comparing their skulls, Amohuimachairodus' skull is longer and narrower, especially with the muzzle. With its fangs, Amohuimachairodus were capable of withstanding a large amount of stress. Despite this, and unlike other saber-toothed cats, Amohuimachairodus' canines were not as delicate due to them being rooted up in their mouths, and their fangs were not long enough to stick out from their jaws, but still enough to be sufficient at hunting. They primarily used their teeth to cut open the throats of their prey. They likely hunted as an ambush predator, evidenced by their legs being too short to sustain a long chase, but better suited for jumping. Amohuimachairodus displays sexual dimorphism, the males being larger than the females, having shorter but thicker fangs and larger muzzles. Amohuimachairodus is a member of the Machmoloch, a group of saber-toothed cats that include the infamous Smilodon, but Amohuimachairodus had a longer tail. Based on the findings in Pikami in Greece and the Shaanxi province in China, Amohuimachairodus would have lived in woodlands and open floodplains, suggesting they had similar territorial preferences to modern lions. Amohuimachairodus would have shared its habitat with various animals such as bovids, mastodons, rhinos, hyraxes, giraffes, and aardvarks. However, it also shared its habitat with other carnivores, including Dinocruta, Agriotherium, Funmachairodons like Metaliurus, and Paramachairodus, and hyenas such as Telesictis. While these predators would have typically coexisted, they would have been the occasional competition between the predators. Okay, neither I or you expected a cat to be in this video, but, you know, as I said, I did want to spice things up a bit, and not all dragons have to fit the stereotype. And the artist actually did do their research into this, so let's see what this saber-toothed cat would look like as a Pokemon. Yeah, I know it's unoriginal, shut up! This rarely seen Pokemon makes its home in the mountain ranges. It incapacitates foes using its poisonous breath and powerful fangs. Crushing opponents with its strong and sturdy fangs appears to be more of its preferred method of attack. Those who encounter it claim it emits a powerful noxious gas. Our final entry in this video is Stollodurus. While it does seem odd for this Pokemon to be a cat dragon, you have to consider that dragons come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Also, the definition of a dragon has become blurred in recent decades. In fact, this Pokemon is drawn from the European folklore creature, the Tatzelworm, which is basically a reptile with a cat's face and a long serpentine body. This is such a unique creature to look into, considering how unlikely such animals would have combined, except for one trait. Their fangs. Yes, a common feature of venomous snakes and smilodonts are their long fangs. Although technically snake fangs are, more designed to inflict poison. Smilodonts usually to rip out throats, but details. The design itself took these facts and made a colourful design. The end of the tail I remember being some kind of scent, like an incense. For stats, Stollodurus has a pretty balanced distribution, with the most emphasis on physical attack and special defense. For abilities, we have Strong Jaw and Unnerved, with its hidden ability being Merciless. All of these scream that this Pokemon wants to deal damage. For moves, while not the most varied, it still offers the power it needs, especially with Swords Dance and Venom Drench. Despite all of these traits, fast psychic types like, say it with me, Alakazam, would be able to inflict serious damage, while bulky ground types like Powdon are too specialized for Stollodurus to outlive in a battle. For Terra types, Dark gives Stollodurus immunity to psychic attacks, while Flying makes it immune to ground attacks. Offensively, making Stollodurus a pure dragon type boosts the power of most of the moves on screen while removing Poison's weaknesses. The same can be said if Poison is the Terror type instead. Overall, while certainly not the most powerful Pokemon in terms of stats, its abilities and moveset do offer the opportunity to either be any kind of physical sweeper. I'd like to thank GrovyleLover for this design. Oh, it's so colourful and it's so creative, and yeah, it still gives off dragony vibes, and I'm really loving that. It kind of makes you think if Pokemon should, the franchise Game Freak, should they experiment more with like dragonish concepts? I say this, apple pie and old man dragon, and I'm trying to remember what the bloomin' heck there were. There's some, I can't remember. Oh yeah, a bloomin' slug. Anyway, if you want to check this artist out, their content is in the you'll see their socials in the description below. And that's the end of this video, but not the end for me, because after I record this, I'm going to have to edit this and some other details into this video. Because, yeah, this video has been delayed for not 1 year, but 2 years.
Gee, really? To be honest, I almost forgot it's been 2 years, as you have too slow back in this route.
Yes, I totally get it, and I do apologise not just to you, but just to everyone, really. I'm just so sorry for the delay. Partially because I've been preoccupied with other projects, but also I've just been a bit lazy at times. Yeah, it's been hectic for me. So, a lot has been going on, but I assure you, like I do say it's a lot, but I do have a lot planned. Anyhow, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving a like, and if you want to see more from me in the future, either subscribe, or if you haven't got a YouTube account, then bookmark my YouTube channel page for, so you have easy access to get to it. But you won't get the notifications on that. Speaking of which, please click the bronzong if you are able to. It will just help. Like, I'm very infrequent uploading, obviously. And if you want to support me further, you can check out my social media. But if you want to go further than that, then please consider checking out my Patreon. And if you want to, you can donate monthly. Minimum cost is £1. Yep, £1. Can't believe it. I managed to change it. Still sinking that in. Yes, I actually got to sort out the video for that. And one last question for you all. If you want to choose any animal, plant, or fungus that's extinct to be in this series, what would you like to see? Please let me know down in the comments below. And if you want to further dedicate yourself for how far you watched through this, just write cucumber. I don't know if there's a prehistoric version of that. I do know of an extinct fruit, which I am working on a mini episode for, so stay tuned for that. Thank you all so much for watching, and I wish you all a happy summer if this video comes out in time, which I hope it does. In the past, present, or even future, I will see you there. Bye-bye!